Well, with that, as President Biden prepares to give his first address to Congress on Wednesday, he will do so right now with a 54% approval rating. That according to that brand new Fox News poll. In the same survey, a slightly higher percentage of those polls say that they believe the president is making an effort to work with Republicans. But a majority of those polled also say they don't think Republicans have made much of an effort to work with the president. Byron York joins us now. He's a Fox News contributor, chief political correspondent at the Washington Examiner. So, Byron, look, he's above Presidents Clinton and Trump at this point in their administrations, but he's below Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Ronald Reagan in the same period. So what do these polls tell you?
Well, we've seen a whole new bunch of polls today, and they all have the president's job approval rating in the low 50s, between 54 in our new Fox News poll. There's 52 in a couple of polls. So he appears to be about in the same place. And that is lower than most. First of all, it's higher than President Trump. Everybody should note it's higher than President Trump. But it's lower than most presidents since 1945 for the 100-day mark. I think there are a couple of reasons. One, the nation is just very divided right now. It's just absolutely divided. And two, President Biden's agenda is a bit divisive. There's a lot of support for the recovery plan that was passed, that huge COVID pandemic relief plan. A lot of Republicans said it didn't have enough to do with COVID relief, but still, it's really popular. People like that. I think there's going to be less popularity for the infrastructure plan, which Republicans also say is not a lot about infrastructure. There'll be divisions there. There's not a lot of approval for the president's handling of the border situation and immigration. So he has done some big things on COVID, and so far they've been very well received. But then there's that next 100 days to think about.
Yeah, let's pick that apart a bit. Let's look at the economy first. It's surprising, but even though the economy is on the rebound, let's take a look at this. Fewer Americans believe the economy is excellent or good now than, even in December, as we are still going through the pandemic. He gets a 69% on the economy as only fair or poor. Why do you think the numbers reflect that?
Well, there's still a lot of anxiety about what the economy, the post-COVID economy exactly will look like. First of all, there were millions of Americans, very fortunate, who didn't suffer economically during the pandemic. They didn't lose their jobs. They didn't lose income. And a lot of them actually saved money by not doing stuff during the pandemic year and are in better economic shape now than they were before. But there were millions and millions who did suffer, who lost jobs, who lost hours on the job, who were in industries that suffered terribly, entertainment and other industries that suffered terribly because of it. There are questions about some aspects of the economy going forward. Commercial real estate, for example, will everybody go back to an office or not? There are all sorts of questions about the economy, and I think those figures reflect a certain anxiety about how things will be going forward.
Yeah, and then what he is going to do on Wednesday, unveiling this massive new program, including more taxes on the wealthiest Americans as well as corporations. Let's take a look at those numbers. A vast majority of Americans seem to support some of that. 56% say that, yes, there should be higher taxes on businesses and corporations. 63% on those folks earning more than $400,000 a year. But as you have pointed out, others are now chiming in saying, look, you do that, you could decrease the incentive for investment. And others saying that this may hurt farmers and small businesses. What about that?
Well, in general, the idea of taxing the rich does pretty well in polls. People always define somebody else as rich, and they say you ought to tax them more. Now, this capital gains tax thing is interesting. Before Trump, it was 35, and a lot of people had talked about how it needed to go down. Under Trump, it went way down to 21, and now there is a proposal to make it 28%, kind of splitting the difference. My guess is that some sort of increase in the capital gains tax could be done. Nothing close to where it was before Trump, But you will see that, and then you will see Republicans argue that, hey, that's going to decrease investment, slow the economy down. But in general, increasing the capital gains tax will probably not be super unpopular.
Yeah, you know what doesn't seem to ever go down, or at least hasn't gone down in a long time? The debt clock under President Trump. And it's been increased, and it doesn't seem that they've gotten a handle in Washington yet on spending. We will certainly be hearing more about that as that debt clock keeps on, ticking up even more. Byron York. Byron, good to see you. Thank you. We'll see what the president says on Wednesday.
Thank you, Eric.